Hello everyone, my name is Y2BlockC and I was level designer on Time Watch for Team 12 for the first two levels of the game, the forest section and the mine section, in which I introduced movement mechanic, interaction mechanic and shooting mechanic to the player. In this first example, the player will be introduced for the first time to the jumping mechanic. As you can see, a hint system advises the player to use spacebar to jump. The player is introduced to the new mechanic in a completely safe space that allows him to try it out as many times as he wants before facing the challenge, that is, a really easy execution. And of course there is no type of punishment if the player happens to fail the challenge. In the second example, the player can now validate his new skill. Once more, the mechanic is introduced in a safe space and there is no punishment in case of failures, but in this case there is no hint suggesting what to do. The player will have to overcome the challenge by just jumping over the log. For this challenge, as you can see here, the player is reminded of what he just learned by a single jump, but then is faced with a new challenge, a longer jump. As you can see, the hint system is going to suggest that a simple jump is not going to be enough. The player is introduced to this new challenge in a safe space again. As a matter of fact, he will be able to try jumping on itself, but it will fail, but the only punishment for this will be backtracking. On the other hand, another hint system will suggest the player that maybe he should try to combine the mechanic with sprinting that he just learned in the previous section. If the player will do so, he will be able to really easily overcome the challenge. Finally, the player is in this section skill gated on sprint jumping. As you can see, the challenge is really similar to the previous one, except that the gap is slightly bigger and the landing point is slightly higher, but especially if the player will fail, he will receive full damage. Also, there is no hint system in this case to help out the player to figure out what to do. The player will have to combine what he learned so far together with timely precision to be able to overcome this challenge. In this section, the player will be exposed to the shooting and interacting and left fielding. As you can see here, the player is first reminded that he can interact with E, and then posed with a problem of the generator being on the other side of the gap. The player at this point knows that he can interact with the object with E, but also that he can shoot objects in the environment, and then shooting objects in the environment will cause a reaction on them. And the hint system will hopefully help him figure out what to do, together with the fact that the distance at which the generator is placed should be at this point familiar to the player. If the player will figure out what the solution for the puzzle is, the execution will be fairly simple. Now that the player has learned that he can shoot generators to turn them on, he is left unguided for the next challenge. Not only the distance between the player and the generator is this time greater and will force him into an aiming challenge if he will want to shoot the generator, but also you will be faced with a logical problem. As you can see here, the generator activates the bridges asynchronously, so the player will have to figure out how to make sure to align them in a way that allows him to go through the gap. For this last section, the player will be faced with a mastery challenge for movement and jumping. As you can see, a thoughtful player will notice the boulders on top of his head, and this will be the first part of the fair chance warning that he will have for the next section. More than this, the player, if he wants to, can already start taking a look of what's coming up for him. Of course, there is no need to say that if the boulder will touch the player will die, forcing him to restart this section. This challenge will mix movement, sprinting and jumping mechanics together with timing skills and time pressure factors, while forcing the player into finding a creative solution to finally dodge the boulder at the end of it.